everyone, I have something super exciting for you all that are planning your perfect summertime barbecue. But what's a barbecue without great music? And if that's on you because you're the music expert, because you own the turntable and the records, well, don't stress. I'm going to walk you through my thought process of what is required to make the perfect playlist for a barbecue or really any kind of summertime engagement. And I'm going to share with you 10 albums that I picked out just for my own event, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's dive into it. What does make a good summertime playlist, especially for an event like a barbecue where you're going to have different ages at the event and you're going to have different kind of interests in music and you're not really going to know ahead of time? Well, I like to avoid the unknowns. I don't like to get super stuck into a particular genre. So when I think about building a playlist, I think about a couple things. I think about albums that sound good from start to end. Not that I'm putting on an album for a hit song, because you don't want to be getting up and changing tracks and stuff all the time or flipping records all the time just because you're trying to play just a key song. So you got to think about one that you could drop the needle at the beginning and you can play the entire album in its totality, right? So it's got to be good music throughout. The second thing is that you want to make sure that the album itself is upbeat. What's the point of having a summertime barbecue if it's dripped and drab music, right? You don't want something that's depressing. You want something that's going to get people excited and kind of keep a positive atmosphere throughout. The next thing is you got to think about explicit lyrics. Albums that have a lot of curse words or maybe suggest a lot of suggestive themes, probably not the best choice. The last thing I think is the album needs to be sort of radio tolerable, meaning that it's got to be something that you would hear on the radio on like a general top 50 list or something, right? Something that anybody can really enjoy. So stay away from getting super deep into particular genres that are more specialized music. Unless my guests were all jazz, enthusiasts, I'm not going to get into like spiritual jazz, for instance, right? Because it's really specific taste. So try to avoid that. Put together a list that is going to sound good for anyone. Now, that might also require you to get a little bit out of your comfort zone. These might not be albums that are going to be your personal go-to albums. I can tell you the albums that I pulled today are not my personal go-to albums. They're good albums. I have nothing wrong with the albums, and I like the albums that I chose. But it's not the albums that I would choose if I was pulling 10 albums for a listening session. It's a different audience, right? So you have to know your audience. So I did pick out 10 albums. I also have a bonus album that I think I'm going to share with you at the end of this video, and I'm going to explain to you why that album fits. But let me dive in with a working example. And starting out with my first pick was Bryan Adams' Reckless, right? This is an awesome album by Bryan Adams. It's got a lot of great songs in here. One Night Love Affair, Run to You, Heaven, Summer of 69. I mean, Summer of 69 is just a classic summertime song to begin with. It's Only Love, Long Be Gone. I mean, there's just so many great songs on this album. And, Bryan Adams is just such an approachable artist, right? His music can be enjoyed or listened to by any age, it's not offensive music, but it's good music and it's upbeat and it's going to be great for a barbecue list. So first one is Bryan Adams' Reckless. Really think this is going to be a great album to spin when guests come over. The next choice I chose is a little bit of a southern rock, right? So still keeping in the rock albums. And this is going to be a particular one that you might even question why this album and not a different album. But I picked out Lynyrd Skynyrd, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. And to me, this is just awesome. You have Tuesday's Gone, Gimme 3 Steps, Simple Man, Free Bird. It's just a great album from start to end. It plays almost to me like a Lynyrd Skynyrd greatest hits. Now, you might be wondering why I didn't pick something like Second Helping, because of Sweet Home Alabama, because really Sweet Home Alabama is almost an anthem for summertime barbecues, and that's because I included it in this banger, and this is a soundtrack. It's the only soundtrack I picked, and please don't take it like a cop-out here. There's good reasons that I picked this soundtrack, and that is the Forrest Gump soundtrack, and this has 32 classics on 2 LPs. It is filled with music. You got Elvis Presley, you got The Rooftops, you got Wilson Pickett, Joan Baez, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Four Tops, Aretha Franklin, The Byrds, you got Three Dog Night, Supremes, Randy Newman, Leonard Skinner, Sweet Home Alabama's on here, Bob Dylan, Beach Boys, Mama and the Papas, Buffalo Springfield, The Doors, Simon Garfunkel, Jefferson Airplane, Bob Seger. There's so many. I give you like 16 out of the 32 artists. You need 32 albums to get all of that heat, and instead you can just get this 2 LP set and have such great music for your barbecue. In fact, even if you just had this album alone, you probably have tons of music just to go by, right? For many folks that just want to play a record or two, this is a great one. You could just put this on, let it spin from start to end. There's not going to be a bad track that's going to come up. The soundtrack to Forrest Gump, it's just amazing soundtrack. It's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time just because it's an homage to me to some of the best music ever made. So really great music on this particular album. Now the pressing, it's a generic pressing. This is not a sit down and audiophile study, but for an event like a barbecue where you're hosting and people aren't really sitting down paying attention to music, it is a perfect album for that, right? This is actually a great time to dust off maybe some of your, 4-star records that aren't just sitting there showcasing the best of vinyl, right? People sometimes just want to hear music, and that's a great record to put on so they can just hear the music. All right, so the next album, I want to break the rock trend, and then we're going to get into some soul here in a minute, but I wanted to break the rock trend. To me, okay, so I might get some flack on this one because it's a reggae album, and I said I'm not going to get into a genre that is too isolated, that only certain people like. But I think Bob Marley and the Wailers, the Legend album, which is the best of Bob Marley and the Wailers, meets that criteria. Think about it. You got Is This Love, No Woman No Cry, Could You Be Loved, Three Little Birds, Buffalo Soldier, Get Up Stand Up, Stir It Up, One Love, People Get Ready, I Shot the Sheriff, Waiting in Vain, The Redemption Song, Satisfy My Soul, Exodus, Jammin'. I mean, this is, to me, summer music. This is reggae summer music. This, to me, transcends summertime and plants me in the Caribbean, for crying out loud. To me, I love this album, and I think that the songs on here are accepted by generations. It is accepted by all musical tastes. This is one of the great things about Bob Marley, is that he really made reggae accessible to anyone. And this, to me, is the collection of songs that made that. Now, will I sit here and listen to Legend on my own? No, I'm going to pull a real Bob Marley album out and play it from start to end. But when I have folks come over and I just need a great album to spin, man, Legend, Bob Marley, perfect all the time. People love it. Gets their feet tapping, gets their body moving, makes them in a good mood. Can't go wrong with a little Legend. Okay, the next album, I've actually showed this album a few times on the channel, so I'm sorry if this is getting tired. If you're a follower, if you're a fan and you watch a lot of videos, you're going to be like, oh, here's that album again. But it's really just that good. Now, normally I show this for its audio qualities as almost a demo record, but in the context of what we're talking about today, I don't think you can go wrong with Bill Withers' greatest hits. This features just the two of us, Soul Shadows. I mean, you got Ain't No Sunshine, Lovely Day, Lean on Me, Grandma's Hands. It's every song on here is heat. Every song on here are songs that are just gonna really just be awesome to like, nobody's gonna complain, right? Nobody's gonna complain about Bill Withers. Nobody's gonna be like, can you turn that noise off? Like, that's not going to happen here, right? This is a great album. Even younger folks are going to know these songs because they've been sampled or they've been used in other things. So if they're into hip-hop, you got a lot of things that were sampled from this album in hip-hop. And now they're going to hear where that music came from. So there's going to be familiarity, even if you have younger folks in there that aren't familiar with Bill Withers exactly himself. So this greatest hits album, to me, yes, maybe a cop-out, pulling out another kind of compilation, but I think this one plays really, really well, and it's just a fantastic album from start to end. Okay, sticking with a little bit of the funk soul, I got the Al Green Call Me album here. I think this is just an awesome, awesome album. What heat comes off of this album. It's almost too hot to touch. You got amazing songs here. Of course, the title track, Call Me. You have You Been Making Out Okay? You have Here I Come. You Ought to Be With Me. You have just, I mean, there's so many great songs on here. Stand Up is another wonderful one. You just can't go wrong. This almost plays like a greatest hits album of Al Green. And I don't think you can, when you think about summertime music and you put on your little Spotify list or your Apple list of like summer barbecue list and you cop out that way, I guarantee you Al Green's going to come up on that playlist and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I should have played the Call Me album because there's songs in this playlist from that album. Okay, taking a break from the soul, getting ready to go back into the rock here for a moment. And to me, this is just a classic album. It's an album that I think is just approachable. It is, it's rock, but it's good rock. It's family rock. Let's say family rock, right? Meaning that anybody can enjoy it. And that is Prince and the Revolution. This is Purple Rain. You know this album. I don't have to tell you about this album. It's got heat. Let's Go Crazy, you got Take Me Away With You, you have Cry, I Would Die For You, I mean, you got Purple Rain itself. There's just so many amazing tracks packed on one LP. Again, you play that summertime list, I guarantee you there's going to be some Prince on there, and it's going to be songs from Purple Rain that are going to come up on your list. I think this is an album that you can play start to end, that people are really going to love, and it does bring that summertime vibe to your event. All right, the next album, I think it's an artist that you're going to either really like my choice or you're going to be like, why did I pick this one or this one? Because there's so many great albums from this artist. But when I thought about summertime and what people would want to be able to like jam out to, I picked out this one, Stevie Wonder, The Songs in the Key of Life. I really feel like you can't go wrong with this album at all. There's a reason why this is one of the greatest albums of all time. Arguably, in my opinion, the best Stevie Wonder album ever. I know that's where stones might get thrown because some people might like Intervisions or something. For me, it is all about The Songs in the Key of Life, and you just got some great tracks on here. You have Sir Drake, I Wish. You have, Isn't She Lovely, As, Another Star. I mean, it's like every song on here, again, is a song that you've heard a million times on the radio, but together on an album like this one, you just got a great 2 LPs of just music that you can drop the needle on and folks are just going to enjoy. There's no way to get around it. Great summertime music packed into 2 LPs. Okay, the next one, I had to. I'm sorry, it is just such an album. Even folks that don't like the genre will like this album. It's one of the greatest albums of all time, and it has definitely a summertime vibe to it. It's going to be music that you're going to put on and people are going to like, and there's not really a bad track in the album. I think 2 albums are they got heat. The rest of the album is just straight fire. And that is Michael Jackson's Thriller. I know. Say it. Drop it in the comments. Be like, what? Thriller? You went there? Yeah, you have to. When you think about music that anybody that's coming over can listen to and would enjoy, this is hands down one of those albums that, again, just transcends time, transcends taste, transcends a lot of things, right? I Want to Be Starting Something, Baby Be Mine, Thriller itself, Beat It, Billie Jean. I mean, it's just every single song on here is just heat, right? And then think about the fun you can have with the kids doing the Thriller dance, So just such a cool album to drop. And for a barbecue, yeah, I mean, this little worldwide press will do. When I'm listening to myself, you drop the more audiophile quality one or whatever, but for the sake of a barbecue, man, just drop your worldwide release. Keep the other stuff for a different day, but I just don't think you can go wrong with Michael Jackson Thriller in any event where you just need some upbeat music. I mean, it's just such a fantastic album. All right, that is actually 9 albums. I have one more plus a bonus album to share with you. And the last album, it's funny, I just want to call consciousness to this, right? Like, I'm building this collection of 10 albums that I wanted to pull out ahead of time and basically have out and ready to go. So when people come over and it's time to play music, I have albums queued up. And I realized I didn't have any albums from a female artist. And that wasn't intentional. I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't like, yeah, let me gravitate to this. A lot of albums I have in my catalog are female artists. But a lot of those they're in genres that are very specific to genres, or some of the lyrics might be subjective. Like, I was thinking things like Lady Gaga, it won't work for everyone. I was thinking about the album The Fame, but I'm like, maybe not. I was thinking about things like, Miley Cyrus, because she seems to be pretty commercialized, but still her music's not for every taste. Same with Taylor Swift. Like, younger people like it, older people, maybe questionable. They don't need a whole bunch of depressing, breakup music. So I was thinking about what can you actually drop. So I started to go down some of the classic stuff. I was thinking like Aretha Franklin. I was thinking about, Ella Fitzgerald. I was thinking about some of the classic names, right? Nina Simone, etc. Even Nancy Sinatra or something. But thinking about summertime and music that gets you moving, there's nobody but the queen of pop. And that is Madonna. I picked Madonna, Like a Virgin. I said the music doesn't need to be subjective, but let's be honest, the most subjective song probably on this album is Like a Virgin, and it's played on the radio like every day. And on this album you have Material Girl, Angel, Like a Virgin, Dress You Up. I mean, it's upside down on that side. It's one of those that you have to flip this way. Sorry, folks. It's just one of those albums that is just straight heat from the get-go. It's upbeat music. Madonna's probably one of the most notable voices of all time on an album. You know it's a Madonna song probably by the time the beat hits already, before she even sings. It's just such a classic album, and I really thought it just fit the whole genre really well. I gotta say, I had a really tough time figuring that one out. I spent probably the most time trying to find the right female artist, and I pulled a lot of different albums out. I'm like, nah, I just don't think it hits all the way. I feel like that one is. Now, as we come to the end of this list, and before I share with you my bonus album and the reasons why, when I would play this, I do want to say, there's probably some shockers on here. There's probably people saying, well, why isn't there no like Springsteen, or why isn't there any Beatles or Beach Boys, or the things that you would think to be on this list? Well, some of that is because I think it's predictable. Some of that also, I think it's music, it's good music to us, but maybe the younger generation doesn't really enjoy that type of music as much as we do. I feel like the younger generation hasn't really grabbed onto the Beatles like us, let's be honest, and I would even say with the Beach Boys. It's good music, but I don't know. I wanted to give you a list that if you went to go Google, you're going to get something different from me than you are with all of like the copy and paste stuff that you're going to get online. So hopefully I at least did that well. Now, I know you're not going to agree with every album I picked, so I would love for you to drop in the comments your 10 albums that you would pull meeting that same criteria. Any generation, no foul lyrics, and it has to be upbeat, because that's what a summertime barbecue list should be about. Except for when it gets late. Now, this is my bonus album. You know that period of time when you have guests over, it gets late, it's dark, little lights, maybe some candles, and you maybe, if you're the type that enjoy adult beverage, maybe you're a few in, and you're just kind of in that chill vibe. You just need that chill background music, but it needs to be upbeat enough to kind of keep everybody alert and coherent, keep the conversation flowing smoothly, but you don't want something that's overpowering. And to me, this is now, I actually pulled this out as part of my top 10, and my wife's like, you know what? Only song that people are going to know on that album besides you is like the first song. So it really doesn't meet your own criteria. And I'm like, yeah, but I love this album. She's like, yeah, but it doesn't meet your criteria. And she's right. But I do think it's the perfect album to put on for that occasion, for that late night, just chill vibe part of it, almost like exit music without playing Semisonics, closing time, basically telling people to get out. But I do think it meets that kind of a vibe. And let me just get to it. It is the Buena Vista Social Club self-titled album. To me, this is a gorgeous album. It is the essential, Cuban Latin album. I've been listening to this album for years. I've streamed it so many times in the background for guests before I actually had this album in my hands. This particular one is the box set, so it has 2 LPs and 2 CDs, so it's very versatile in that regard. And the opening song on this one is Chan Chan, and she's right. That's probably the most widely known song from the Buena Vista Social Club, and probably the only one that people would really know. But when you think about the vibe of this album and where you are in a part of that evening, I think this is a great album to kind of segue off of all of that high energy music, still keeping a good positive vibe forward to send people off before they go home. So, if you made it this far and you already put down your 10 albums, if you actually were a good community member and put down your 10 albums, go ahead and drop in what would be your closing album, the late night album, to kind of smooth things out, to allow people to go home on a positive note. And while you write those in the comments below, I'll see you on the next video.